How are you today? Well, I'm gonna do the English video today first. I usually do the German video first, then the English. Today I'm gonna do the English one first because I have a lot of questions or people complaining, of course, or questioning the rapture. My last video I addressed 2 Thessalonians 2, where Paul talks about the gathering. So in 1 Thessalonians 4, he says the catching up of the bride. And in 2 Thessalonians, he then uses the word gathering. That's how it was translated. So he clearly talks about the gathering of the saints, the gathering of the true believers. And if we read 1 Thessalonians 4 and 5, we know that this gathering is at the beginning of the day of the Lord. Even 2 Thessalonians 2, we know the gathering is right at the beginning of the day of the Lord. And so what happens next? Well, we know it's the wrath of God. We see that in Isaiah 26:19 through 21. That there's going to be the gathering of the saints, in other words, the resurrection, and the gathering of the still alive saints, and the resurrection, and then the wrath of God. That's what Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5, that we're not going into the wrath. I have done a number of videos, previous videos, you just have to go back and look at them again, that show that clearly, that there is a gathering before the wrath of God. Now in Revelation 6, the fifth seal clearly tells us that the martyrs who are under the altar, those are the souls. They have not been resurrected yet. They're still the souls under the altar. They're screaming out. Those are the martyrs. Remember in my last video we talked about the martyrs. We talked about those that have been killed during the Inquisition. Those are martyrs. Those are not the only martyrs. Because the martyrs started, the martyrdom started right after Jesus died. The first apostles were killed. They were martyrs. Right after that, persecution continued. Then we saw very clearly, if you need to get into this Inquisition, where so many true believers, all true believers, died. There was not one true believer left. And of course, this persecution continued. It continued through deception. That's persecution as well. And so finally, Jesus says in Matthew 24:29, and you can look that up, at the end of this great tribulation that these saints are going through, that's when the day of the Lord starts. In the Old Testament, the day of the Lord was signified through the sun going dark and the moon losing its shine and the stars falling from the sky. A catastrophic event happening. And Matthew, Luke, and Mark, Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13. No, wait a minute. Yeah, it is that way. They tell you the same thing. And then we come to Revelation, and Revelation tells us again in Revelation 6, the sixth seal. See, in the fifth seal, the martyrs are still screaming. And Jesus says, or God says, just a little longer. Just a little longer. And then in the seal 6, which we are coming into right now, okay, make no mistake, those 4 writers have written. They're gone. We are right now, the martyrs are screaming. I am screaming. I hope you are screaming. I hope you're screaming and saying, how much longer, Jesus? How much longer are you watching this? I hope you are screaming. And Jesus says, just a little longer, just a little long, just a little longer. Then we come to the 6th seal in Revelation 6, and that is the introduction of the wrath of God. The people know the wrath of God is coming, but not until the 8th chapter in Revelation is the wrath described. Before, there's the gathering of this multitude that came through this tribulation. The martyrs that were screaming in chapter 6 under the altar, and now in heaven they have been gathered. When? Before the wrath starts in chapter 8. God says, wait, I have something to do before the wrath starts. People read the Bible. Most do not read the Bible. They blabber what false teachers are telling them, and they don't care to blabber all these things and to tell these lies. They don't mind being little minions for the lies. But when you read it, you see it. It is clear that there's the gathering of the multitude in chapter 7 of Revelation. Right before the wrath. The world sees the wrath coming, and God says, stop. Before all this goes crazy, I'm going to have to do something. And he seals 144,000. And many people think, oh, that's Jews. Well, no, it's not just Jews. It is all tribes of Israel. Now, are they still alive? Or do you know those tribes of Israel, those 12 tribes, are they still in existence? No. They're only symbolic people. Only the Jews really are still here. And with them, we don't even know for sure. Okay? Now, Israel and the Jews are different. Well, they are the same, but Israel is more. The Jews is only the tribe of Judah. So those sealed ones are not just the Jews. They're from all of Israel. And all of Israel is scattered amongst all of the heathens, the Gentiles. They're mixed in. So really, they're part of the Gentiles, and really, they are sealed because they accepted Messiah. So they are really Christians. So those are believers, true believers in Messiah. They're not necessarily just because they are biological Israel. Read it. I can't read things for you. You need to read it yourself. And stop blabbering the lies. Read it for yourself. There's a 144,000 sealed from the tribes of Israel. All tribes, not just the Jews. And Israel today is not all tribes. It's only Judah and Benjamin. So get that in your thick skull. So these 144,000 sealed are not standing for biological Israel. They're standing for spiritual Israel, for those that will accept Messiah. But Not before the rapture or before the gathering, the first gathering, but after. Because they're sealed. Because those are the foolish virgins. They're not part of the multitude that were gathered. Okay? There's two groups in Revelation 7 if you read it. The first group is sealed. The second group is up in heaven. They're the ones that have been gathered when Jesus is returning before the wrath of God. Get that in your big skull. There are two gatherings. Because there's another gathering after the wrath. And who's going to be gathered after the wrath? Who is going to be the guests to the wedding? There's going to be guests to the wedding. The bride has been gathered before the wrath and is now safe and secure in the rooms that Jesus has prepared. So who in the world is the guests to the wedding? Well, those are the people that are being gathered after the wrath of God, that have to go through the wrath of God. They're the 144,000 sealed. They're also the foolish virgins people. If you know the parable of the 10 virgins, they're the foolish virgins that were not ready. They kept denying that there's going to be a rapture or a gathering before the wrath of God. Oh no, there's only one gathering. Well, then fine. If you think you're in the second gathering, be my guest. If you think there's only one gathering, hopefully you picked the right one. Hopefully you are worthy. That's what Luke says. Hopefully you're worthy to be in that first gathering. When you watch, I did a video just recently about Luke. And it says, if these things start to happen, like the sun going dark, the moon losing shine, look up because your salvation is near. That's the first gathering, before the wrath of God, before the sun goes dark. And then at the end, it says, hope that you're worthy to escape all these things. Read Luke again. That's what Jesus says. Hope that you're worthy to escape all these things. What things is he talking about? The wrath of God, people. So the saints are worthy. They have the Holy Spirit. They're connected to Jesus. They were gathered before the wrath of God. They're in the huppah, or the chambers that Jesus prepared. They're safe. And the 144,000, they have to go through it because they were not ready. They were foolish virgins. Luckily, they're going to hold on to their faith. Do they believe in Messiah during the wrath of God? Or some of them may even still come to faith during that time, which is almost impossible because the Holy Spirit is gone. We have a hard time right now coming to faith, and we have the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is still here. Once the bride is gone, the Holy Spirit is gone. And there's going to be, yes, the Holy Spirit on the two witnesses. Just like in the Old Testament. Again, there's certain people that really are full of the Holy Spirit, and those are the two witnesses in Revelation 11. So you're seeing the two gatherings, I hope. Because Matthew 24:31 is talking about the gathering of the angels. The gathering the angels do after the wrath of God. Read that, and a lot of people confuse that. They think that is the gathering, the only gathering And that is not right. That's the second gathering. That's the gathering of the 144,000, the guests to the wedding. Do you want to be a guest to the wedding? Or do you want to be the bride? It's up to you. It's up to you. So you can make up your mind, and you better hurry up and make up your mind. Because then it determines whether you can continue, to run after these false prophets, these false teachers, and whether you continue to be, one yourself. Think about it. What gathering do you want to be in? The first one or the second one? The one before the wrath of God or the one after the wrath of God? Do you want to be the bride? Or do you want to be the guests to the wedding? You make up your mind. You can read it. Matthew 24, I think it's in 31. When the angels come and gather the elect. That's what it says. Elect. The elect, in that case, are not the saints. The elect in that case are the 144,000 that did not make it into heaven and be part of that multitude which is the bride of Christ. The ones with a transformed body. Those are the ones. Yeah, I thought I had to really do this video. Because so many people scream and say, oh, rapture doesn't happen, rapture doesn't happen. Well, that is exactly what people call the rapture, is that first gathering. And many people who believe in the rapture, they don't think about that there's going to be a second gathering, and that's why they cannot tell you very well. They focus on the first gathering, the rapture. It's when the saints are taken out. Everybody wants to be in that first gathering. When the saints are taken out, which is the resurrection and the transformation of the body. That's what people want to be part of. But that does not happen after the wrath of God. See, those people, those 144,000, will not have a transformed body. They will have an earthly human body. They will be on this earth as human beings during the millennium. They're not going to be transformed bride. The bride is first fruit. You can read that in Revelation 14. There you see again 144,000, but that is also the multitude. 144,000 is only a symbolic number anyways. It's not the name of the group. It's a number. And yes, both numbers have 144,000. The 144,000 sealed, that's the name of the group, sealed, and the multitude, or the virgins. That's the bride of Christ. It's a difference. People don't read, they don't want to hear. And so the 144,000 sealed will not have a transformed body. They'll have a human body. They'll be human beings during the millennium. They're not going to be bride. They're not going to be really co-rulers with Jesus. They will help Jesus rule and the bride rule as ministers or whatever, but they will not be co-rulers, and there's a difference. Now, I've talked about these things before, because you're going to have to read it. I can't read everything in the Bible. You have to read it. I have done so many studies where I actually read these things. You can go there and read them. Revelation 6 is the major thing. Remember the seals? We are right now going into the 6th seal. They're gone. 2,000 years. We've had 2,000 years of history, human history. And those seals have been opened. sixth seal, the fifth seal has been opened. The martyrs have been screaming, people. I have been screaming, Lord, how much longer? And of course, then we're having the wrath of God starting. And that's what we're preparing right now. I believe the elite know what's coming. And they're preparing the bunkers. Read the sixth seal in Revelation 6. Starts with verse 12. And then the wrath of God starts. That's the seventh seal. That's going to start very, 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 very soon. Very soon. But before that, what is happening? The multitude will be in heaven. The first gathering, the first fruit will be gathered. First fruit. Remember, in the Hebrew harvest, there is a first fruit. And that first fruit will be gathered before the general harvest. Then the angels, the servants of the master, will gather the harvest. Okay? It's a difference, and you have to understand that. There is a first fruit harvest. Lots of people do not understand. Even if they have an understanding that there's a first fruit, they're still going to mess it up. Mess it up. First fruit is the saints. They are first fruit to the Lord. They are special to God. So they're gathered by the Master himself. The gathering happens by the Master himself. The Master will get the first fruit. So Jesus will do the first gathering, not the angels. Then after the wrath of God, after Jesus destroys his enemies, then he will gather the harvest. And the harvest of people that continue to believe in Jesus after the rapture. But they are not bride because they did not have the Holy Spirit. They did not follow really Jesus the way they were supposed to. Remember the parable of the 10 virgins. There's 5 foolish ones that said, they even cast out demons and did all these things. And the Lord said, I don't know you. Why doesn't he know them? Because they were not connected to him. They just did these things on their own because they thought it was right. So it is important that we are really connected to the bridegroom. Connected means we definitely know him. We do what he wants us to do, not what we want to do. If we think, it's good to cast out demons, that doesn't mean anything. The Holy Spirit did not lead us to do that. We think we need to build a new church. It's not something we're doing. It's something we're doing. It's not something the Holy Spirit is leading us to do, unless he's leading us to do it. And there's a difference. But anyways, coming to an end, I just really wanted to talk about these 2 gatherings that many people have no idea are happening. Too many people think, there's only one gathering, and there's no rapture, and all this nonsense. It's really nonsense, people. It's really, really nonsense. That's because they don't want to study the Bible. They don't want to study. If I would put the word rapture on, people would again freak out. Rapture doesn't even exist. The first gathering is the rapture. That's when the bride is being taken out by Jesus himself, not the angels. And then after the wrath, there's a second gathering. Who's being gathered after that? Of course, the guests. There's going to be guests to the wedding. Who's going to be a guest to the wedding? Do you want to be the guest to the wedding? Do you want to be the bride? Think about it. Yeah, it's a very major decision. Coming to an end, people. Let the Holy Spirit guide you always.